I have decided that I am no longer afraid of God. And that is a first for me, I think. Um, I grew up a very, very God fearing individual, I guess. I guess that's how we'll put it. Um, and bear with me for this video because I really want to make sure I'm saying things the way that I want to say them. Because the subject of God is tenuous at the best of times, especially in our country. Tenuous at the best of times, and opening your mouth and saying shit like this is suicide at the worst. Um, I've had a year. I've had a year. Um, and when you go through something that is impossible to understand, impossible to put into words, um, impossible to wrap your feeble human mind around. Things like God and free will and, the way our universe is structured. This fucking clock, it's gonna drive me absolutely bonkers. Um, those things come into question, you know? When, uh, when the entire way that you understand the framework of our world is upset, you have to question things like God, free will, the universe, how much say you have in what you do, how much say you have in various outcomes in your life. And I grew up very Christian. Like, I was the most God-fearing young girl that you could have ever met. I was all in. I was all in for most of all of my childhood and then teenage years into college. Um, I can't remember exactly when I was baptized, but it was as a young teenager, maybe 12 or 13, I believe. Um, and my church was my home. Briefly mentioned in another video that my church growing up, the church I went to from ages like around 5 until we left that church when I was maybe 15 or 16, maybe, something around there. Um, and that was my home, and God was everything. God was everything to me as a kid. I read the Bible. I was interested in asking questions. I went to every youth camp, every youth group, every church meeting that I could. All of my friends were Christian. My family's Christian. God was a very big deal to me throughout most of my life. And I remember the moment that I started to question things. It was when I was in college. I went to a Christian college, but it wasn't as bad as some of them. Man, when filling out those applications for Christian colleges, shit gets really scary. There was one I applied to that was literally like, boys and girls can't hold hands on campus. That's like against the rules. Like, you will be chased down by a faculty member and get in some kind of trouble. You had to like sign this thing like, I'm not gonna You know, I'm not gonna do all these things. I'm not gonna party. I'm not gonna dress provocatively. I'm not gonna, you know, it was kind of wild. Glad I didn't go to that one. The one I went to was actually pretty good. In terms of, it was a Christian college. It was a college that, you know, was built on those truths in the Bible, but also you could kind of be who you were. They even had like support for LGBT Q plus members, which I didn't join at the time because I wasn't fully still in a little bit of denial. Read a lot of bit of denial. But growing up, I always, you know, I had questions about the Bible. I had questions about God, and I kind of always assumed when I'm an adult, I'll understand. When I'm an adult, you know, these things that seem like mysteries to me will be as factual as they seem to the rest of the adults. And I took a theology class because I originally went to college to become a youth pastor in Japan. And so I was taking a theology class. And I remember the moment when all of my faith in our understanding of God as a people, I remember when that shattered. And it was when, I can't remember what question I asked. It was a theology class, and so we were you know, talking about something, and I can't remember what question I asked, but I asked a question like, well, how do we know that this is the truth? How do we know that what you are teaching us in the class right now is real, is factual? And I fully expected to have an answer. I fully expected to be told how we know that it must have been outside of my understanding. And the answer I received shocked me, because I remember my professor said, "We don't know. This is just our best guess. All of this is just a guess. All of this is just, we take the Bible at its word and we string together these theories and we come up with a guess." And that was not the answer I was expecting. I kind of expected that, you know, the adults, you know, everybody's so sure. Everyone's so sure. And that's what baffles me. That's what truly baffles me, is that belief in God at one point was based on faith. At one point, it was based on things not seen, right? The whole point of believing in God is believing in something that may or may not be real, but you are putting faith in its existence. And over the years, I think faith in God has turned into, I'll choose my words a little carefully for this. It has turned into stubborn, willful, blind following, blind belief. It's turned into something that has no more questions. It's turned into something that people grip onto with an iron fist, and something that people are no longer comfortable with questioning the possibility of. They're no longer comfortable with the concept of faith being ambiguous and based on hope and, you know, the possibility that you could be wrong. Because that's the thing about faith. With faith, you have to know that you could be wrong. Otherwise, it's not faith. Otherwise, you're just believing the facts, you know? Faith comes with uncertainty. Faith comes with, you know, the possibility that things don't line up the way you think they do. And faith has been a real struggle for me. Not just faith in a God that we can't see, but faith in myself, faith in the concept of hope. You know, I've been depressed for a very long time. I have considered suicide more times than I think most people probably have, or the average person rather. Let me make sure this is not important. Okay. And I find that faith extends to a lot of things beyond God, beyond the concept of God. I can't talk because I'm like, this is a kind of a very loaded video. I never thought that I would question the concept of hope. You know, hope is, it's nebulous. Hope is very akin to faith, I think. I think hope and faith are very intertwined concepts, more than we'd like to think, because hope is believing that there's something better, believing that when you are at your worst, when it is midnight and there is no one to help you, there is no one there to listen, there is no one who is willing to sit there with you, and the only possible truth of your life seems to be death. The only possible way out of your misery seems to be death. Hope is saying, tomorrow might be better though. Tomorrow might be better. And if not tomorrow, next month might be better. A year from now, it might be better. It might be, it just might be. And so you wait, and you stay your hand, and you don't make the final decision. And to have that hope, you have to have faith that there is something better. There is something better than this misery. There is something better. And I think for a lot of people who believe in God, that hope is for after we die. That hope is that when we die, there is a heaven, and God will meet us at the gates, and he will let us in if we have believed hard enough and put our faith in the right God and in the right belief and in the right place. And I'm starting to have trouble with that concept because it is hard to cling to a life where the only hope of something good is after death. Where the only hope is something that none of us have witnessed. And yeah, I'm starting to have trouble with that concept a little bit. Just a little bit. I think, and I don't know what I believe about God right now. I believe that last year, when I reached out for something intangible and something to hold on to and something to propel me forward, that something answered back. And I don't know what that something is. I don't know what voice it is. I don't know how long it's going to stay. I don't know how long it's going to listen to me, and I don't know how long it's going to answer. My biggest fear growing up, and then in my adult life, was being abandoned by God. The concept that if you didn't believe hard enough, if you didn't believe right, if you went down the wrong path, if you decided the wrong thing, that the being that created the entire universe, created us all, created everything that lives, would abandon me and decide I was not worth saving because I was too feeble to trust in something I couldn't see. And that fear of abandonment has kept me afraid of God. And the Bible talks about fear of God. You know, it says there is a healthy fear of God. It says there is a respectful fear of God. It says there is a fear of God that is earned by his status as creator of the universe. And the fear of God has kept me from living my life, has kept me from being the person I am. Because the God that my parents worship, and the God that my city worships, and the God that I've seen be worshipped my whole life, says that I am a woman. And it says that I can only love another man. And that my job is to bear children, bear fruit, be fruitful and multiply. And that is my purpose. And I don't like that anymore. The Bible says that he created us male and female, and I was created female. And I want to believe that I forcibly took that rib from Adam, and that it is mine now, and I was made in God's image and in the image of a man. Because I am sick of my femininity. I am sick of womanhood. I am sick of this role that was thrust on me since birth that does not belong to me. I am sick of a God that believes that my body is more important than my personhood, that my body is more important than my spirit. I'm not afraid of God, I'm afraid of suffering. Because the Bible promises that if we do not believe in the right thing, if we do not follow the right God, then it is eternal damnation for us. It is suffering for eternity. Can't talk today. Really hate that. Really wish my words were coming out better. And the thing is that puts me in an interesting crossroads. Because that means I have to choose between suffering for the rest of my life in a body and an identity that does not belong to me, for possible salvation at the end of my life, or to live as I believe God made me, a man, and suffer for the rest of eternity once I die. And I'm starting to think I'm going to take my chances, because I cannot believe, I refuse to believe that if there is a loving God, that if there is a God of the universe who created us all, that he created queer people too, that he created trans people. Because I swear to you, I have seen more of the love promised in the Bible, more of the unconditional agape type of love from queer people than I've ever seen in any goddamn church I've ever been to. And the Bible talks about Pharisees. And the thing about Pharisees that I think Christians nowadays forget is that Jesus hated Pharisees because they believed in the law of God above the suffering of people. They believed that it was the laws and the rules and the book that saved us, and that it wasn't a Messiah who sat down with the sinful and sat down with the dirty and sat down with those who are outcast. And the whole point of the New Testament is Jesus being pissed off that there are people who chose laws and cleanliness and written words over the suffering and the needs of the real people that make up this world. And I think it's interesting that a lot of churches forget that. I think it's interesting that, when you go to church, you should be dressed right. There's a lot of judgment made on how you dress, how you speak. Have you ever cursed in a church? Have you ever said a cuss word in a church? It's very funny. I have seen more of God's love from queer people than I've ever seen from a church. There are a lot of people who are very angry that queer people took the rainbow. And the thing is the rainbow, after the earth flooded, was God's promise to never flood the earth again. It was God's promise that he wouldn't click the reset button ever again. And yet, at church, all I hear about is how the end is coming because this world is so sinful, this world is so broken, that God must be coming soon because of abortion and queerness and people daring to live the lives that they are free to choose. And I personally believe that the rainbow was God's gift to queer people. It was his promise to never flood the earth again because we belong here. Because we are supposed to be here. We are supposed to be queer. We were created male and female and non-binary and intersex and trans and lesbian and gay and bisexual, asexual. Everything. We were created everything LGBTQ plus and everything under that umbrella. If there is a God, that's what I believe. And if there's not a God, that means that there is a whole lot of people holding a lot of us hostage in a government that refuses to acknowledge our existence, that refuses to support our autonomy over our bodies. Gay marriage is legalized now. Do you remember before gay marriage was legalized? Do you remember the debates where how gay people are ruining the sanctity of man and women? That two men or two women deciding to get married ruined the covenant that God created for us. Ruined the covenant that was supposed to be ours to take and make with each other. And now, trans bodies are under fire. It is not safe for me to transition where I am. I could be homeless if I took a single shot of testosterone. Homeless. And that's a better situation than some. There are some that are homeless because they dared to have autonomy over their bodies and they dared to get an abortion, to start HRT. To love someone of the same gender. I can't fear a God that wills that to happen. I refuse to fear a God that would rather see his children suffer in bodies that hurt them. It hurts to be a woman. It hurts. Every time I have to hear my fucking dead name. I never liked my name. From when I was a kid, I never liked my dead name. Not once. I asked my parents when I was a child if I could change it when I was an adult, and I didn't realize the reason, but I've always hated my dead name. And the reason that I chose the name David, I think would shock a lot of people. Because when I was about 9 or 10, and remember, I believed in Jesus more than I believed in anything else. I believed in him all in. And when I was about 9 or 10, I thought about how Solomon was asked what he wanted by God, and Solomon's answer was wisdom. He asked for wisdom above anything else, and then God made him the wisest man. And I thought to myself, if God made an offer like that to me, what would I say? Solomon asked for wisdom. He was the wisest man. He took wisdom. He got that one. What would I take? What would I ask for? And I remember I asked that I could be the most loving person. That if God offered me the same offer he made Solomon, that I would ask to have a heart for God and a heart for people and be able to love more than anyone else on the earth. And I remember I asked to be a man after God's own heart like David, because that's who David was. He was a man after God's own heart. And that's why I've taken the name David, because I think through discovering queerness and the queer community that he answered that. I think that I am the most loving person I am capable of being. And I choose to believe he heard me. And I can't fear a God that gave me queerness. I cannot fear a God that put in my heart the desire to be a man. I can't do it. I refuse. And that's scary. I think there's a lot of toxicity in the church. The concept of savior is a dangerous one. The concept of savior can keep you trapped if you let it. The concept of savior can keep you from taking responsibility for your life, for your actions. I said this once, and I still like the way I phrased it. That savior shit will rot your brain, because if you believe in waiting for a savior instead of taking action, you're going to be waiting a long time. You're going to be waiting a long time. And I have waited a long time. I have been locked in depression. I have been suffering from voices screaming in my head, not audible voices that I can hear, but pain, psychological anguish for a long time. I've been suffering from dysphoria for a long time without knowing its name. I hate my body. My body is a prison. My body is a prison, and I'm forced to live in it without being able to make any changes because some God apparently disagrees with the medical reality of trans people. I'm scared to transition. I'm scared because it is a permanent change to my body, and you can't really try it out before you do it. You know, you can't, there are a lot of things that are permanent about that change. And when I read them in the moment, they sound exciting. They sound amazing. A deeper voice, more body hair, different muscle structure, you know, a flat chest, which, you know, not hormone related, that's surgery, but sounds really good. Sounds amazing. But I was raised to question every thought I had. I was raised to question everything I knew about myself, because if God didn't say it, it couldn't be true. If some other voice from years ago didn't say it, it couldn't be true. If some other voice didn't say it in the book that is printed over and over again, that is translated out of its original language and then dispersed to our population, if that book doesn't say I can be a man, then I am not allowed to be a man. Then I must be a woman because I own a vagina. I can't fear a God that is limited to an outdated book. And now here's where things get complicated. I can't fear him, but I don't know if I can say I don't believe in him. I don't know what I believe right now. The only thing I know I believe in is the kindness of people. I believe that God must be kind because the image of people that we were created of him. I fucked up that. Oh well. People are kind. I've experienced kindness from people again and again. And this year I have experienced an earth-shattering kindness that I can't understand. I can't. I think I believe in God because I believe in the kindness of people. And I don't want to spend my life fearing a being who made people kind. Kindness is the most beautiful thing we have as people. Kindness is everything. If you can't be kind, if you can't be kind, what's the point? What value do you see in the world and in humans and our existence if you can't be kind? What value is there if we can't be kind to each other? If our existence is based on hatred and judgment and restricting other people's bodies because we are a little skeeved out by the concept of injecting ourselves with testosterone or marrying someone of the same gender, or of getting an abortion that could save your life. Why were we made if not to be kind? I can't fathom an existence where people go through the world and they think it's just there for them. I can't fathom an existence of going through life and not caring about the people around you and not seeing suffering around you and wanting to help, wanting to make it right, wanting to do something. Unkind people confuse me. I can't imagine an existence where you think this is only about you. Because it's not. We were put here for each other. We were put here to love each other. We were put here to care for each other. And I have seen more of that love in the queer community than I have seen in any other community. Because love is not supposed to have rules. Love is not supposed to be this limited, weak, fragile thing. Sorry, just had to check that wasn't important. Love was never supposed to be fragile. Whether God exists or not, love was never supposed to be fragile. And we have turned it into this thing that can only exist between a biological male and a biological female. By the way, through this election, if I hear the words transgender biological male one more time, I am going to break my fucking TV. I'm so... Oh, that phrase pisses me off so deeply. But, you know, love was supposed to be this powerful thing. Love is supposed to be something that extends beyond our understanding. It is supposed to extend beyond rules. It is supposed to extend to those who need it. And I see that in the queer community, where we love each other regardless of our bodies. We love each other regardless of our gender identities. We love each other because we do, and we can't help it. I cannot help loving women. I cannot help loving men. I cannot help wanting the body of a man. Queer people know what it's like to be governed by love above all else. God, I can't talk. I have yet to meet a Christian who is as governed by love as the average queer person is. I'm not saying they don't exist. I have met Christians who are kind. It's not that I haven't ever met anyone like that. There are people who believe in God who get it. But it makes me angry to see that book being abused. It makes me angry to see the concept of God be abused in favor of our political desires, in favor of wanting control over other people's bodies, in favor of wanting others to live the same lives we do. If you are not attracted to the same gender, you can't understand what it feels like to have your love restricted. If you are happy in the body that you were born with, if you don't shudder at the sight of your own genitalia, if you don't have a deep, deep hatred of the body you were given, you cannot fathom the suffering that it is to stay in that body and stay in that identity that doesn't fit. You can't understand it. And I don't see why you should get to decide what we do. I don't see how that's fair. Love was never supposed to be restrictive. Love was never supposed to be fragile. Love was never supposed to be idealistic and weak. Love for our fellow man and for each other is supposed to be what carries us through. It is supposed to be deep. It is supposed to be messy. Love is pulling someone else from the grave when you are so close to it yourself. Love is seeing someone in need and deciding that that need rises above your own pride. I'm so angry that the people who proclaim to have God's love the most have the weakest and most fragile love I've ever seen. They have the most flimsy, thin love that I've ever seen. Their love is limited to a goddamn book. Their love is limited to other people who believe the same as them. And they say that they love us. They say, you know, love the sinner, hate the sin. A phrase that really pisses me off. Love the sinner, hate the sin. That means you hate our love. That means you're not hating our sin, you are hating who we are. You're hating our identity. Love is patient, love is kind, love keeps no record of wrongs. And yet I see you marking down every single way that I have loved other people. Every girl I've kissed. Every girl I've had sex with. I see you marking it down. I thought your book told you not to. I thought your precious book said we were more important. I'm angry. I'm angry. I will not fear a God whose people are too weak to love us. I will not fear a God that wants me to be enslaved in this body, in this identity that's not mine. I am not a woman, and I will never be a woman. I never was. Never was. I'm afraid of a lot of things. A lot of things. I'm afraid of abandonment. I'm afraid that I will have no family soon because of my choices. I'm afraid that I'm too damaged and disabled to ever have a life that I want. I'm afraid that I've already lived the best years of my life. And they were not as a man. I'm afraid I'm too old to change. I'm afraid of the future. I'm afraid of what my past actions have decided for my future. I'm afraid that someone I love very much does not belong in my life. I'm afraid that whatever God heard me this past year will stop hearing me. I'm afraid that I'm not strong enough to be who I need to be. I'm afraid of my weakness. I'm afraid of my body. I'm afraid of the pain I experience and that there is no end in sight for it. I'm afraid that the hope I cling to is false. And I don't even know what hope it is. It is something intangible. It is something that escapes my understanding. A lot of things escape my understanding right now. I'm afraid of a lot of things. But I will not fear a God that cannot hear my voice.